Matvei Michkov returns to the lineup last night, Charlie. The hero's welcome in front of the home crowd after sitting out the final 2 games of the 3-game road trip. And he delights the crowd. He sets up, gets the primary assist on TK's power play goal. And then, it was so nice to see, scores himself. He's +2 in the game. He's on the ice for all 3 of their actual goals.
Gets the shootout
scores
goal.
In the shootout as well. It's really nice to see him back, and this is something we got into in postgame. We got a lot of Michkov stuff, but this is something we talked about in postgame last night that I wanted to expand on because we only have so much time.
This is true.
In the postgame hits. I'm not saying like long term. Oh yes, Ryan Poehling and Tony Dick. This is who he needs to play with for the next 10 years. Like that is by no means what I am saying.
Right.
But when you look at the makeup of this team, there's not really a perfect scenario for Michkov to play alongside. We've seen him with Owen Tippett as his opposite winger, and Tippett needs to shoot a whole lot. Yeah. He is a volume shooter.
Yeah.
Mish needs a lot of touches because that's him, man. He's doing wizard stuff all the time, setting things up, getting his own shots, whatever it is. There's only one puck. I don't see that as viable. We talked a lot in the offseason about, I think a Frost-Forster pairing with Mish, that might work. Well, Forster's on the 4th line and Frost ain't playing.
Yeah, they're both struggling mightily.
Both are it might not be playing in 2 weeks,
Not wrong.
Like, I liked him with Coots, but it looks like we have something going with the Coots, TK, and Tippett line.
I want to talk about that a little bit later, not now, because let's stay on the Michkov thing, but I think there is one reason why that's working, and I don't think it's something that a lot of people want to talk about, but I basically think Sean Couturier is just playing really well.
Oh, I very much agree.
And I think there are a lot of haters who will refuse to acknowledge that Sean Couturier is playing really well, but he's driving that line.
I very much agree. But with Mish, that leaves okay, he kind of is on this 3rd-ish line last night with whatever's left. Morgan Frost is out of the lineup, so Poehling gets bumped up.
Yeah.
Anthony Richard is still here because we have guys on IR again, so might as well keep him. I like the way their games fit with what Michkov does.
Okay.
First of all, speed.
Yeah.
These guys are going to get the puck through the neutral zone. They're going to create some rush chances. We haven't seen Michkov on the rush enough.
True.
Last night, that line scores 2 goals on the rush. I gotta believe that that's something we are going to see more of if we keep them together. Ryan Poehling, we know he can win some faceoffs. He can do some things for you defensively. He scoops up that loose puck to get it to Michkov last night. We see Richard set up Eric Johnson on the other rush goal. Michkov's out there. Like that. They both have a little bit more skill. A little bit more skill than they're given credit for.
Yeah.
Richard, he can score in the AHL, but what is he really? And Ryan Poehling, we always joke, he had that one game.
He had that one really nice setup of the Garnet Hathaway goal a few games ago where he showed there's a reason why he was a first-round pick who scored a hat trick in his very first game. Right.
A little bit more. And sometimes superstars just play with other superstars and everyone makes each other better and we have a super line. Other times, you get these combinations of, he doesn't have the 2 other highest scoring dudes on his line.
Yeah.
But they all kind of just fit. And for right now, when there isn't really an answer, I don't think at least, this is as well as they can do. And as well as keep the other lines kind of working towards figuring out how to make this team good at 5-on-5, which they've been for the last week or so.
I think what it really boils down to me is I think I think the answer here, if you're asking what's the answer, the long term, by long term I mean this season, what is the long term answer for where Michkov should play? It's probably on Morgan Frost's wing. That is probably where he should end up. The problem is that Morgan Frost is playing really poorly. So until Frost gets it going, or I guess now it's until he even gets back in the lineup, but until he does his yearly, it's January, I'm a good player again thing.
Yeah.
They can't do that because you can't put Michkov next to a guy that's just scuttling, which is what Frost has been doing pretty much all year. So until then, what do you do with him? He's had moments with Couturier. My concern with putting him with Couturier really has very little to do with stylistic, because I think those two, like, they're fine together. Couturier is a very smart player.
They can read each other.
They can read each other. Like, Couturier is probably the one guy on the team in the offensive zone who, like, doesn't think the game the exact same way that Michkov does, but, like, Sean Couturier is an extremely high hockey IQ player. Matvei Michkov is an extremely high offensive zone hockey IQ player. I think that works. The reason why I don't think it works right now for the Flyers is because, due to the circumstances of what the cards they're dealt with, Sean Couturier is the 1C who's getting the toughest matchups. And I don't know if Michkov right now is ready to deal with that every single shift at 5-on-5. So I don't think you can put him with Couturier because of that reason, because he's still figuring out the finer points of 5-on-5 play. You can't put him with Frost because Frost is a mess. Right now, he's not even playing, but I assume he'll get back in at some point. Even when he does, unless he's playing better, you can't put him with them because they're not going to do anything at 5-on-5 until Frost figures it out. So until then, I don't know. Is this maybe the best case scenario for where they're at the moment? Because, like, I'm thinking back to Pittsburgh when they won their cups and they put Phil Kessel on the third line with Nick Bonino and Carl Hagelin. Phil Kessel, look, I expect that Matvei Michkov will not be the 5-on-5 liability long-term in terms of defensive play that Phil Kessel was for a lot of his career. But Phil Kessel was a guy where if you gave him somewhat sheltered minutes, he'd score a lot of points. Because it's like, yeah, you put Phil Kessel against third lines, he's going to kill it. And then you gave him two pretty good line mates of Bonino and Hagelin, not superstars by any means, but pretty good guys. That line killed it. It was a dominant line in the playoffs, dominant line, period. Maybe something like this. And I don't think Anthony Richard is a long-term solution, but maybe Poehling, Michkov, and somebody else. Maybe that works for now until Frost gets going.
And that was my next thing. Like, yes, ultimately, when this team is trying to be good in a few years, Michkov's playing 19, 20 minutes. He's your first line right wing. Yeah. He's the best player on the team. Does he really need to play 19 or 20 minutes a night right now? Like, I don't know. Does he really need those top line matchups? I don't think so. I think as we're building him, we should build up to it. And he can do it in special. If you're down 2 goals in the third, like, yeah, man, he's getting double shifted. So he is going to be out there with Coots too. But I don't see a need to give him every possible tough, matchup along the way, while he's, like, dealing with figuring out what
he's figuring things out.
Figuring out the North American game. Yeah. Figuring out what John Tortorella wants. Figuring out how to consistently score on these goalies. Like, I don't know if we need to give him all of that right now. And that brings me back to Richard. Because, like, no, he's not going to be here long term.
You just like saying Tony.
I really do. But no, this is something, like, it's not even him specifically. Just the style of player. This is something you and I have been talking about almost 10 years. You're allowed to be a one-dimensional or even zero-dimensional player if your perceived dimension is defense.
True.
This team, all of their actually good players are good defense. Like Sean Couturier. Yeah, he's had a couple of big games, but mostly he don't score at all. Yeah. And he's playing 20 minutes a night. Yeah. Why not have role players who do the things that, like, can be made up? A team of superstars that score all the time, let's just have a bunch of good checkers, because that's what we need for depth. The Flyers don't have primary scoring, so maybe they need to boost it with a little secondary scoring. I could see him as a guy in a third-line role or somebody similar to him. Like, is he a complete player? No. But can he play 12 minutes a night like Tony Dick did last night and give us a point? Yeah. I just kind of see that as something kind of necessary for this team right now.
Yeah, look, right now, I don't disagree with you because I don't really want him playing with Couturier while he's figuring out the finer points of 5-on-5 play because I want him to get slightly easier matchups. There's the second line problem, which is basically the Morgan Frost problem functionally. Ryan Poehling, I don't want him to be his center long term. But the thing is that it doesn't, like, I know in the moment it feels like what is happening right now is the most important thing.
Of course.
But it's not like this is going to last forever. Like, as I said, I expect that Morgan Frost will eventually get going because he always eventually gets going. It's just that now you're just thinking, like, is this just who he is? Where the first two and a half months of every year, he kind of stinks. And if that's the case, should he be part of the long-term solution? That's a fair debate to have. But I do think at some point Morgan Frost will get going because he's done this for 2 straight seasons. He has a track record of eventually clicking. Once he does, then you can move Michkov back up comfortably and have him not be playing first-line minutes against top lines all the time. Other thing is that the longest this is going to last, I think, is this season, because I got news for you. I think they are projecting Jet Luchenko to make the team next year, and Jet Luchenko is basically Ryan Poehling on steroids right now, and you're assuming he's going to get better.
And we saw them have decent chemistry when they played a little bit together.
So, like, if Michkov has to kind of, play down the lineup with guys who we know aren't going to be the type of talents that he's going to be playing with 2-3 years down the road, it's probably not the end of the world, because we know that there's an end point. We know that either Frost is going to figure it out, or Jet Luchenko is going to make the team next year, or they're going to end up near the bottom of the draft thing, and they're going to win the lottery and get a real good center. Like, I do think there's a path for this not to be a long-term thing, so I don't think it has to be annoying that he's playing with Ryan Poehling. In the here and now, like, I look at that lineup and I'm like, God, you have Matvei Michkov with Ryan Poehling. Like, and Poehling, like, I don't dislike him.
No.
He's a bottom 6 center. And you're like, God, wouldn't it be great if Michkov was with a better center? Problem is,
they don't
is that
have one.
They have one who is taking all the tough minutes, and then they have another who, when he's playing well, is better than Poehling. But right now, he's not better than Poehling.
And that's you mentioned Jet Luchenko and you mentioned the draft lottery. Like, yes, Flyers are looking better right now. They're like 23rd in the league. 6-8-2, getting closer to 500. They have 3 regulation wins.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's a big tiebreaker, and it's a pretty good indicator of the type of hockey you might be playing.
There's
a good chance they have a top 10 pick.
I've really liked what they've done the last 3 games.
Yeah.
All 3 of those games went to shootouts.
Yeah.
We all silly like the mayor.